Hello, everybody. This is the unofficial Mooncast that should have been held yesterday on July 12th. Technically, the moon became full last night at, it was like 7:50 something Pacific Standard Time. And normally I hold a live Mooncast in the group, but I was actually detained. There was like some massive traffic, some kind of truck or something flipped over, and they had blocked off pretty much all of the routes back to my house. So rather than try to hold an impromptu Mooncast in a coffee shop, I opted to take that as an opportunity to kind of wait on the energy just for half a day until I could create this video for you today. So this moon has been quite intense for most people. And as you know, when I do the lunar forecasts, the energy is good for at least 3 days. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is going to apply even if you're watching this, in the next couple of days. That's fine. The energy will still be relevant. And I try to not only talk about the current energy, but also what's kind of coming and what we're moving into. So if you've never attended a Mooncast with me before, note these are usually held live in the Sacred Launch, but I wasn't able to do that this time, so this is a pre-recorded one. First of all, my name is Vanessa Corazon, and I am a life and business psychic coach. I specialize particularly in mindset and work, not the artificial structures of mindset, but actually our core beliefs. I also work in terms of lunar planning. I am the creator of the Moonsite Lunar Guided Business Planner, and I help corporations and entrepreneurs and creatives and coaches to really tap into their potentials by removing things like obstacles and belief systems that are impeding their growth. I also happen to work in lunar planning, which is really working with and utilizing the energy of the moon in order to make and plan for the changes and the growth in our business. So when it comes to our everyday to-do lists, as well as our long-term goals. So this forecast is really going to be covering ideally the next 3 days, but I always end up going a little bit further ahead. It will be covering the lunar energies, as well as just, I tend to do astrology very intuitively. I read into the energy and the messages that are coming through in terms of over the overall source. And that is what I'm going to be sharing with you through this video. So the past few days in particular have been, I know for me personally, have been extremely intense. I've also gotten messages from clients who were also reiterating the same. There has been aspects of things that had at one point in time felt fairly solid, fairly well structured, that you may have found has become kind of unearthed or shaky. Our emotions have been quite high for most people. This was a Cancer full moon that we were moving through, as well as a partial solar eclipse. So there was a lot of amplification kind of happening, likely building up over the past few days for you. For me personally, I was dealing with a lot of anger. A lot of like internalized anger and frustration and just agitation, finding it really kind of hard to focus. And we're also on the cusp of Mercury retrograde, which is going to be beginning on the 26th of July. So we're already in the shadow period of that. I personally have been already experiencing some tech issues. And so there's a lot of lot of edginess and a lot of agitation that's kind of happening right now. And you may have found that your previous areas of clarity, or where you were feeling, quite high vibrationally, you may have found has taken a bit of a dip. We're kind of wading through a lot of our root emotions and core emotions and experiences and patterns right now. There is a big opportunity right now. This is not a time to kind of resist and to push away these feelings. You're going to find that they're going to get in the way of a lot of your plans if you do, and that it's best to kind of take a day or two and to kind of sit with what you're feeling and what you're processing, to clean as much off your plate as you can. So like it becomes very hard to kind of deal with what is kind of unearthed within us when we feel like things are kind of just being layered on top of us. So it's best to try and remove as many of your responsibilities as possible for the next little while until it has shifted. That is what I had to do yesterday for myself, because it kind of just hit a peak, and I felt like I had no choice. I had to kind of just put a pause on as many things as I possibly could, just to kind of address what has been happening kind of underneath the surface, right? There is definitely a lot of change at work. What we're finding is that the primitive aspects of us that have they've always been there, they've always been active, even if we don't necessarily pay them too much attention. They're asking for our awareness right now. We're being asked to really look into what I would call our core driving forces. There's going to be a lot of stuff that is going to be coming up in terms of survival. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up in terms of like loss and grief, death. There's a lot of aspects coming up in terms of change and letting go. And we're going to be, it's very normal to feel like a resistance to this, right? Because if you've been kind of like coasting along to this point for the last little while, this is going to feel like you've kind of hit a dead end. And no matter where you go, you're kind of hitting that dead end. And this is not necessarily, there's aspects of it that are going to lighten up a little bit, which you may have noticed today. There has been just a little bit of a release, especially if you've been working with this instead of against the energy. But this is not necessarily something that is going to entirely change. We are, like, as I mentioned, moving into Mercury retrograde on July 26th. We're already in the shadow period of that. It will be lasting until the 18th, and then there's also a shadow, August 18th, and there's also a shadow period after that. And there's also there's other planets that are in retrograde right now as well. So really what we're going to be moving into energetically at this time is really going to be a massive period of reflection. We're being asked to look at the many, many facets and layers of our life and our internal world. We're going to be asked to be looking at our own inner energies, our own motivating factors, where we want to go from here and what's really important to us. We're going to be asked to be looking at what areas of our life that we're feeding, that and of our experience that we're feeding, that we don't want to continue to nurture or to support anymore, especially if those areas and those aspects are not supporting our longer term vision, if they're not supporting our growth, if they're not healthy. We're going to want to be looking at relationships or patterns in relationships that are not cultivating the life that we really want for ourselves, that may be building a life that we don't want to live anymore. And so this is a very big period of lots of change, really. on in all aspects of our life. And really it's our relationships to these things. So our relationship to money, our relationship to ourselves, our relationship to our body, our relationships to other people, our relationships to our emotions, our relationships to our business, our relationships to our future, and what we really want to create for ourselves. So there's going to be a lot of reflection in terms of that. And so if you are, you're kind of pushing ahead in something and you keep meeting various levels of resistance, this is not the ideal time to launch anything new. That's for sure. It really is a time to kind of go back and look at the things that we've already started, the intentions that we've already set, the things that have already been put in motion that maybe we have not been paying as much attention to, where we did at some point in time make a decision along the way. We're going to be asked to kind of become honest with that. Is that something that we still want to continue? There is going to be periods or aspects of things ending around this time, where we're going to be looking at all the parts, the things in our life that we've kind of stitched together. We've got a patchwork of stuff going on that may not feel uniform. It may not reflect who we're becoming. It may not reflect the types of relationships that we want to continue. It may not reflect the type of business that we want to run, or the relationships with clients that we want to have, or the relationships with ourselves, like how we treat ourselves. So there's a lot that's being kind of moved over, and I want to say there it's going to feel like with a magnifying glass. There is a quality to this that is requiring us to really fully take in all the optics, to really fully take in all the data, and to not be afraid to kind of go over these areas of our life with a fine-tooth comb. Like, where do things need to be kind of smoothed out? Where have we really been avoiding things, especially within ourselves? Where have we've been operating from survival instead of the bigger vision that we hold for ourselves? If you made some decisions a little while back in terms of things that what you want to charge clients, or how you want to run your business, or decisions within a personal relationship, or a particular lifestyle commitment, we're going to be asked to relook at this again. Like, remember when you made that promise? Remember when you said you would go over that? Remember when you said that it was going to be different, or you were going to stop doing that? You kind of didn't, right? So what are you going to do with this now? Because you've got this like open-ended commitment where there was a decision made where you didn't, you kind of started it, but you stopped, or it dropped off. So this is really what we're looking at in terms of this next stage. And this is going to be something that it feels like it's going to be lasting. I want to say at least the next month and a half, probably a little bit longer. I want to say this is actually going to be going into the beginning of September. But there is a positiveness to this. Like, notice this. If there is an aspect of you that's kind of feeling frustrated with what I'm saying right now, there is a massive gift in this process, because this allows us to clean our house. This is allowing us to really look at all the areas where we're being pulled and saying, how many of these areas do I want to go, knowing that it's not possible for me to go in all of them. Right? That there's only so much of me that I can give, and certain things are more important to me than others. And if we've made promises or commitments out of feelings of obligation, that this is a big thing that we're going to really need to look at. That there is no place for obligation here. We don't have the energy for obligation and for the stuff that we actually want to do. We don't have energy for both. And there's also, there's another aspect here that's saying, are you ready to stand on your own? Are you ready to stand on your own 2 feet? Are you ready to live with the decisions that you're making? Are you ready to follow through with the commitments to yourself, not to necessarily to other people? The commitment piece to other people, if you actually still want to follow through with it, if it still feels like it speaks to you, if it still feels like, it nourishes you, then yes, that is something that you should be looking at here. But if it feels dead to you, if it feels heavy to you, but you're like, I made that commitment, I promised, I made that commitment. Notice how that is binding you. Notice how that is taking energy from you, and that no good can come from that. And then when we step into that, we get to honor the person that we've also made that co-commitment with. Where we get to say, you know what, I need to be a little more direct here. I need to be a little more honest here. Things have changed for me, or I feel differently about this. That's really what I want to share with you in terms of this forecast. Obviously, with this being pre-recorded, I cannot take any questions, but I'm happy to answer questions in terms of the actual forecast in the comments. So please feel free to leave them here, and I will go into them in the group. I hope that this helps you. Please utilize this time to focus on what you actually want to create and not on what you don't. This is not a resistance to what you don't want. Like, fully take that in and notice where you've been losing energy, or where you're committing things, or where you're, diving into people pleasing that's not serving you. But this is really a time to let go of the things that are no longer working and to step into what you do want. Thank you for joining me. Happy full moon, and I will talk to you guys soon.